Hello, everyone. Today I'll tell a few more stories about Swami Kriyananda. And today the theme will be how supportive he was. And I remember a time in the early days, late 70s, early 80s, sometime in there, he wrote me a personal note because he knew I was going through a very difficult time. And in the note, which I still have, he said that I should put my hand in Divine Mother's hand and walk through this experience with her. And that meant so much to me because I was feeling very forlorn, feeling abandoned, feeling very alone, like so many of us do when something hits us in a big way and we're devastated by it. And through the years when different things have happened, I always remember that image, and I share it with you so that you can also visualize it and hold that image in your heart. We're never completely alone. God is always with us. And if we can get quiet enough and stop wailing long enough, we will understand that that presence is always there if we will listen for it, if we are open to it, if we ask that it come to us. So spiritually, in that way, Swami was always very supportive of people individually. And of course, in sharing the teachings to everyone, with everyone, he was very supportive of many, many thousands of people. We were in India with him for 9 years, and he did several television shows that were broadcast all over India. And so when he walked down the streets of New Delhi or in Pune, people would often recognize him. There was one hotel that we used to sometimes go to for lunch in Pune, and the people who worked there always recognized him and had seen him on television. It was just so sweet to see how people recognized him wherever he went. And he was also very supportive of people that he only just met or knew very peripherally, like those people who worked in the hotel that he frequented. He made it a point wherever he lived. This was true in Assisi and in Nevada City and in Gurgaon when we lived there in India. He would get to know shopkeepers and people who had bookstores and baristas and places that he enjoyed frequenting. He would get to know them and be very friendly towards these people. There was one shopkeeper who had a luggage store near where Ananda had our wishing tree gift store in one of the malls in Gurgaon. And even years after Swamiji had passed away, that man still recognized us and asked, what about Swami? How he had passed away. He was so sad to hear it, and just remembering and talking about how Swami had been so kind to him. And this was just a regular person in a little shop, but Swami had been supportive of him and kind. There was a time when a very dear friend of mine was Swami's secretary, and I was his photography assistant. And so the three of us would sometimes have lunches or dinners together. And my friend or I would cook the lunch, and sometimes Swami would cook too, but those times together were very, very precious. And I remember one of those lunches in which my friend and I were asking Swami about Master and how he took on other people's karma. And so we were saying, how does that work? And he was talking to us about it, and he would say that just as a strong man will sometimes help a weaker man carry a heavier load, so the masters come and take on some of that burden. And Master did that for his disciples. And one of us asked Swami, so do you take on karma, other people's karma? And he wouldn't deny it. I remember he looked down at his plate and was very quiet and said, well, we all have to do our part. So in that way too, he was very supportive. And if taking on karma was manifest in the physical body, then he took on a tremendous amount of karma. We used to accompany him sometimes when he would go to a doctor in India, and his nurse, Miriam, had pages of medical history. And to read through all the things that he was dealing with, sometimes the doctor would sort of look at him sideways like, how can you even be alive? You're dealing with so many problems. But he always kept, we've talked about the sense of humor in some of these talks before about him. He always kept his sense of humor. I remember near the end of his life, he was telling me about how he was losing his sense of taste, his sense of smell, his sense of hearing. And then we were joking about, but he still had his sense of humor. And that's a good lesson for all of us. And lastly, in talking about how supportive Swami was of everyone, I just want to conclude by talking about how much he did sacrifice in order to create Ananda, and how all of us are benefiting from this amazing lifestyle that he created, a lifestyle of incorporating yoga into every aspect of our lives. He's helped us to create a life in which God is first, and we can serve Him and love Him and talk about Him openly. And so many, especially living in community, but even the greater Ananda community, that has so many opportunities for being together, even during a pandemic. So many offerings online, so many books, so much music, so many beautiful talks and programs, concerts, so much that can help us to live a spiritual life. But when we are able to be together in community, just the idea of schools and a place of worship and family life and job, all being connected, all being supported by this community of like-minded souls. It's a tremendous blessing, and I wouldn't have had that if it hadn't been for Swami. So as we think of him as such a supportive influence, let's remember that that influence is very present today, very alive in every Ananda person, in every community, in every offering that comes from a plethora of devotees from all over the world. But all of it stems from his love and appreciation for his Guru and wanting to share the blessings of his Guru with all of us.